Welcome to another episode of Mythic Drafting and our 10-part series on how to draft each of the colour pairs in the upcoming set, March of the Machine. Be sure to check out the rest of our channel where we've done a video on every other colour pair, but today we'll be taking a look at how to draft blue-red. The first place I like to look is the signpost uncommons, the first of which is Joyful Storm Sculptor, which is 3, a blue and a red for a 2/3 human shaman, and when it enters the battlefield you create 2 1/1 blue and red elemental creature tokens. Whenever you cast a spell that has Convoke, Joyful Storm Sculptor deals 1 damage to each opponent and each battle they protect. I think this card's just really strong. It gives you 4 power and 5 toughness spread over 3 bodies, and it also has quite a good passive in that blue-red wants to be casting Convoke spells, and this would just ping your opponent as well as any battles that they have. Blue-red has a strong Convoke theme, so being able to get 3 creatures in one makes it likely that you'll be able to double spell the turn you play this if you've drafted blue-red correctly. The battle for blue-red is Invasion of Kaladesh, which is a blue and a red for a 4 defender counter battle, and when it enters the battlefield you create a 1/1 colourless Thopter artifact creature token with flying. And then if you manage to flip Invasion of Kaladesh, you get Etherwing Golden Scale Flagship, which is a flying legendary artifact vehicle, and its power is equal to the number of artifacts you control, and it has 4 toughness. It only has crew 1, so it's quite a cheap vehicle to crew. However, I think that this card is going to be in a bit of an interesting spot in that it's only giving 1 creature for Convoke, and it's going to be difficult to get it down, and even if you do manage to flip it, I don't think there's a ton of artifacts in blue-red, but if you do manage to have enough ways to make incubate tokens, this could quickly become quite a high power flying vehicle and kill your opponent quite quickly. I think this card is definitely worth trying to start with, and it couldn't end up overperforming my expectations, but I'm certainly happy to take both Invasion of Kaladesh and Joyful Storm Sculptor early and try and play blue-red Convoke. And this is because some of the most powerful uncommons in the set are Artistic Refusal and Stoke the Flames. And these cards both have Convoke, which means that you can tap your creatures to pay for 1 mana or 1 mana of that creature's colour. Artistic Refusal is 4 blue for an instant with Convoke, and you choose one or both. Counter target spell or draw 2 cards, then discard a card. This is a really strong counter spell in that you get to take your opponent's spell out, and you also get card advantage off it, which is going to really help in the late game, and you can discard unuseful lands and draw 2 new cards. But the beautiful thing about this counter spell is I think that you're likely going to be able to cast this on turn 4, because you could play a 2-drop and a 3-drop, and as we'll see, some of the 2 and 3 drops in blue-red create multiple bodies. And then you're going to be able to cast another 2-drop and potentially tap all of them to cast Artistic Refusal to counter your opponent's 4-drop and have a massive tempo swing. This is a sweet card, and I'm really looking forward to drafting this one and playing it in blue-red. Then we have Stoke the Flames, which is 2 red for an instant with Convoke, and it deals 4 damage to any target. This is just bread and butter, a really powerful uncommon. It will kill most things in the format, and the fact that it could be done with Convoke makes combat an absolute nightmare for your opponent, and this is just a really strong card. Then we have Xerec Strobe Knight, which is 2 and a blue for a 2/2 flying vigilance human knight, and you can tap it to create a 2/2 white and blue knight creature token with vigilance. Activate only if you've cast 2 or more spells this turn. This is a fantastic card. It's going to go in every blue deck. However, I think in blue-red you're going to have the ability to double spell more often than not because of Convoke, and it also feeds the Convoke chain, and then it's creating additional creatures for you to cast more and more spells with Convoke on the same turn or on later turns. It also, because it has Vigilance, allows you to beat down your opponent while you're casting your Convoke spells and can create a pretty quick clock. All 3 of these cards are really powerful, and I can't wait to draft them early and try and build around them. We then also have Kenra Spellspear, which is the blue-red flip creature uncommon. It has Trample and Prowess, and it's a 2/2 for 1 and a red. And then for 3 and a blue Phyrexian, you can transform Kenra Spellspear into Gitaxian Spellstalker, which is a 3/3 Phyrexian Jackal with Trample, Ward 2, and then 2 instances of Prowess. This also indicates that blue-red cares somewhat about spells and triggering prowess on multiple turns, and if you can, Gitaxian Spellstalker is going to take over the game very, very quickly. Just triggering this once to instant speed is going to make it a 5/5 trample that's difficult to kill because of Ward 2, and if you manage to have 2 instant spells, you're going to definitely blow out your opponent in combat and hit them to the face or to any battles on the field. I think Kenra Spell Spear is a fantastic card, and I'm really looking forward to playing this in a blue-red spells based deck. Another powerful uncommon that I'm keen to try out is Shivan Branchburner, which is 5 red for a flying haste 4/4 dragon with Convoke. I think it's going to be really interesting to see how good this card is. If you can consistently have 2 or 3 bodies down on the battlefield, then it's not unforeseeable that you could cast this on turn 4 or turn 5, in which case I think it's really strong. But it'll be interesting to see how costly it is to tap down all of your creatures on your turn to play this, because you may not be able to protect your battles. However, on the flip side, I think this card is going to be really strong at flipping battles, because it's 4 flying power, which takes out most battles, at haste, and your opponent isn't going to be able to plan for it. There are also some really strong blue and red commons. The first 2 are Preening Champion and Rail's Reinforcements, and both of these commons are going to be necessary to fuel the Convoke decks. Preening Champion is 2 and a blue for a 2/2 Flying Bird Knight, and when it enters the battlefield, you create a 1/1 blue and red elemental creature token. Rail's Reinforcements is 1 and a red for a sorcery, create 2 1/1 blue and red elemental creature tokens. Both of these cards create 2 bodies, and they both create blue and red creatures. The purpose of these, I think, in the set is that they enable you to cast both of the blue and red Convoke spells in the same deck and tap them for the mana. They're effectively mana fixing, they're ramp, and they're also power and toughness for when you actually need to kill your opponent. I think these cards are going to go significantly up people's pick orders quite quickly when they realise that they're necessary for the blue-red Convoke deck. And one of the payoffs for blue-red Convoke is Thunderhead Squadron. It's 5 and a blue for a 3/4 flying human knight with Convoke. So if you just imagine you play Rail's Reinforcement on turn 2, all of a sudden you can cast Thunderhead Squadron on turn 4. And if you've managed to play any red or blue 1-drop, you could actually cast the squadron on turn 3, and all of a sudden your opponent is facing down a 3/4 flyer on turn 3, and that's all at common. There's also Ephara's Dispersal, which is just a really strong instant, I think, in this set. It's 2 and a blue for an instant. This spell costs 2 less to cast if it targets an attacking creature, and it returns target creature to its owner's hand, and you surveil 2. I think in the really strong, powerful blue-red decks, they're going to rely heavily on tempo and casting all of your spells before your opponent can deal with it. And if you are tapping out, your opponent's also going to have the opportunity to attack through to battles. And I think Ephara's Dispersal is a great card to counter this, in that you can tap down your creatures and all your mana except for 1 blue, and leave this up to take out your opponent's biggest attacker and potentially stop them from flipping a battle or just dealing too much damage to you. Another card that may help with this is Shatter the Source. It's 5 and a red for an instant, and it has Convoke, and you choose one. Shatter the Source deals 6 damage to target creature, planeswalker, or battle, or you can destroy target artifact. Now, 5 and a red for this kind of removal spell is quite expensive, and I don't think without Convoke this would be a very playable card outside of the sideboard. However, if you just have 2 or 3 creatures, all of a sudden this only costs 4 or even 3 mana, and the modality of it being able to take out creatures and battles, or even planeswalkers if your opponent has them, is really, really valuable. And I think if you've got a deck that can consistently curve out creatures, Shatter the Source will go significantly up in power. Another such card is Temporal Cleansing. This is 3 and a blue for a sorcery with Convoke, and the owner of target non-land permanent puts it into their library, second from the top or on the bottom. Now, this card is going to allow you to combo out some turns where you could potentially play multiple creatures and then play this for 1 mana or no mana and put your opponent's strongest creature in their library and off the battlefield. It also has the ability to clean up tokens, as it simply just takes them out. That's really relevant in this set with Incubate and a few other creatures and spells that create tokens. But the reason you're going to be playing blue-red is for some of the sweet, sweet rares. The first one is Chandra's Hope's Beacon, which is 4 red for a legendary planeswalker, and it has a passive ability that whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, copy it. You may choose new targets for the copy, and this ability triggers only once each turn. In a deck that features many expensive blue-red spells with powerful effects, Chandra is an amazing opponent, and if you manage to open it, I would highly recommend going into a blue-red spells deck to maximize the power that Chandra has. It also has a strong +2 in that it adds 2 mana in any combination of colours, and this pairs really well with the passive ability in that you can play Chandra and then +2 it to add 2 mana, and then you can use your creatures to convoke out a more expensive spell, or you can just play a cheap blue or red spell for 2 manas and instantly get the copy ability. Its +1 is that you exile the top 5 cards of your library, and until the end of your turn you may cast an instant or sorcery spell from among those exiled cards. And then its -X is Chandra's Hope's Beacon deals X damage to each of up to 2 targets. The second ability isn't overly powerful, however in a heavy blue-red spells deck it's going to pretty consistently hit and is effectively card draw and card selection, but its -X is really strong in that you can just play Chandra, -4 it, take out 2 4 toughness creatures, or if you're in a particular bind you can -5 it to take out 2 of their biggest creatures. This is going to clear the board and allow Chandra to go to work over the next few turns as you add mana, dig for cards, and copy your instant or sorcery spells. Another card that benefits greatly from non-creature spells is Chrome Host Seed Shark, which is 2 and a blue for a Phyrexian Shark, flying 2/4. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, incubate X, where X is that spell's mana value. This effectively will turn all of your spells into creatures, and in a blue-red spells deck is going to be really, really strong. And you're going to be able to cast spells, putting your opponent's creatures back in the library, and then get a 4/4 lying around. This combos particularly well with Convoke, in that if you're convoking out spells and then creating additional creatures for later turns, you're going to increase the amount of mana that you have to chain more and more spells. And one such spell that you may want to cast in the most dedicated of Convoke decks is Transcendent Message. This is X blue, 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 blue for an instant with Convoke, and you draw X cards. This is not the type of card that you can just put into any blue-red deck. However, if you've got a really strong, consistent Convoke deck that can get multiple creatures out, Transcendent Message may be a strong card, in that if you have, say, 6 lands and 4 creatures, all of a sudden on your opponent's end step, you can tap this, all of your creatures and lands, and draw 6 cards, and anything further than that is just simply out of control. I also think this card's going to be quite good from the sideboard, in that you can side it in potential control matchups where you just need to outgrind and outvalue your opponent. A couple other amazing rares are Zephyr Singer, which is 2 blue blue for a flying vigilance 3/4 with Convoke, and whenever it enters the battlefield you put a flying counter on each creature that convoked it. This is just an extremely efficiently rated creature. It's going to give all of your creatures flying, and it's going to quickly start beating down and ending the game alongside your team. Another awesome card for the blue-red Convoke deck is Invasion of Segovia. It's 2 and a blue for a 4 defender counter battle. When it enters the battlefield, you create 2 1/1 blue Kraken creature tokens with Trample. This is going to instantly fuel your Convoke and allow you to cast more and more spells, and additionally it creates 2 creatures which can attack the battle if your opponent doesn't have any creatures or you've managed to kill them. Then once you do flip Invasion of Segovia, you get Kaitis, Sea Tyrant of Segovia, which is a 3/3 legendary creature serpent, and non-creature spells you cast have Convoke. At the beginning of your end step, untap up to 4 target creatures. This card is simply insane in the blue-red Convoke deck, in that you're going to have creatures, it gives you an additional body, and it will enable you to attack your opponent, untap your creatures, and then cast Convoke spells on their turn, or alternatively you can use your creatures to tap them to cast sorcery speed Convoke spells, then untap your creatures to have them as blockers on your opponent's turn. This card will be a serious engine in blue-red Convoke decks, and I can't wait to play with it. And that wraps it up for blue-red. The overall game plan is really Convoke, Convoke, Convoke. I think this will be one of those decks where the cards you put in really have to go towards this game plan, in that you either want to be playing cards that create multiple bodies, cards with Convoke to take advantage of them, and alternatively you also probably want some cards to draw more cards, to dig you to more pieces, to add more creatures and cast more powerful spells. There's also a bit of a spells matter sub-theme, so make sure you're keeping an eye out for that. And I think some of the blue-red decks will lean more into that than Convoke. However, naturally, as a lot of the instants and sorceries have Convoke, I think there'll be a strong overlap between them. As I said, the creature commons that make multiple bodies are ideal, as they will enable you to have the potential for busted draws that simply leave your opponent wondering what happened. It's also interesting to note that the deck has a great range of instant spells available to it, so if you manage to draft multiple different ones of these, you could leave them up for your opponent. And there's also a 3 and a blue instant card which has Convoke and draw 2 cards. If you have this card and then say the counter spell, you can pass a turn, and if your opponent doesn't play anything worth countering, you'll still be able to cast your other instant to draw a card and take advantage of the mana and gain a huge tempo swing. This is the kind of sweet stuff I love doing with blue-red spells decks, so if you like this video, please be sure to like below and subscribe to the channel, because I'll be uploading draft videos as soon as the set is available on Arena. Thanks for watching.